Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Simwear Porsche Cup for Season 2, Round 2, here this evening at Zandvoort in the Netherlands. A brilliant track for us to take these Porsche Cup cars to. Can't wait to get back in the action. Of course, we had a brilliant race back at Spa a couple of weeks ago. We're here, only travelled a few miles here to Zandvoort, not that far of a trek. I'm sure we're going to have another great evening of racing, and joining myself in the commentary booth will be Aaron Smith. Aaron, welcome in. Great to have you back with us yet again. We had a brilliant race for round 1 and we're back here. What's your thoughts on Zandvoort?
It's okay. I think a lot of people are pretty neutral to this track. I've never really heard anyone say, oh, I hate this track, or oh, I love this track. It's just one of those, that people are like, oh, we're going to Zandvoort. That's all right, it's not too bad. And especially with the new scan that we got, I think about a year or two ago, definitely has improved a lot since the old layout was a bit flat and a bit boring. The banked sections of this track have definitely improved the racing. Turn 3 is definitely quite satisfying when you get it right, so I will admit that. I think the racing is going to be very, very different from what we saw 2 weeks ago. It's going to be basically the opposite. There's no slipstream round here really at all. Maybe round the final corner into turn 1, but that's about it. What I do think is going to be a lot more important is that qualifying session that we'll get into, and just starting way further up the grid is going to matter a whole lot more, and especially those race starts. We've spoken about this a few times, I think last time out, and in the Porsche Cup ARA, which is actually finished now. The starts in these cars are super, super important. If you can get that nailed down, you can gain 2, maybe 3 positions into turn 1 if you absolutely nail it.
Yep, certainly. It's one of the key things that drivers will be keeping an eye on. And we'll have a quick look at the standings after our first round, of course, back at Spa. This is the car off into the barriers in the background. As you can see, of course, Aaron Barber leads away on 80 points, of course, our last season as champion. And then Corby Lazarus, who had a victory in our main feature race last time out. He sits in second place on 65 points. with Philip Hammer in third on 63. Then we'll have Miles Hemming in P4, followed by Felix Votta, Kenny Heremans, Christoph Urbano, Jensel Van Thielen, Luke Andrews, and then Maiko Van Look, our top 10. Of course, Luke Andrews leading the Pro-Am category, and Marco Van Look sitting in 10th. And then if we go down to 12th place, we can see our Am category leader, which is Jonathan Lindelof, who sits in 12th, and then Joran Engelen is second in the Am category. So, surprisingly, the Pro-Ams and the Ams quite close together.
Yeah, I kind of, the Ams usually are way behind, but last time out they did pretty well, and maybe that's in part to the Pro-Ams not doing so well. We'll find out here at Zandvoort if that was the case. Usually there are some Pro-Ams, as I've experienced over my many years in commentating, that sometimes there are some Pro-Ams that probably should be in Pro, and we might see that over the course of this season. Famously, and I'm not one to boast, Sam Fitzpatrick here at Apex Racing TV, who also runs a lot of the leagues at Apex Racing Leagues, of course. He said I was one of the biggest reasons why they added the Pro-Am category, because I was always the annoying Am that kept getting into the mix with the pros. So, yeah, you're welcome, everyone, if you race those leagues. I'm the reason for Pro-Ams, apparently, according to Sam. Not my words. I'm just, the messenger. Don't shoot me. But at the moment in the practice session, it's actually fairly spread out. I don't know about you, Nathan, but I was expecting it to be a lot closer. It's about a second between the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I was expecting the gaps to be a lot larger because this track, it might only be a shorter track. You're in the 1 minute 34s, but it is quite a difficult one to navigate your way around, especially in the Porsche Cup car. So I'm actually personally surprised that the gaps are as small as they are. Of course, the top 12 separated by just under a second, and then the top 20 down to George Tyler separated by just under 1.5 seconds here. So I expect that will have some really good racing, and one of those where, like you said before, Aaron, qualifying really does matter. The gaps are quite small, so they've got to make sure they can get their perfect lap in. And one driver I want to keep an eye on tonight is going to be Joran Van Thielen, Jensel Van Thielen, who had a decent start in qualifying. Of course, went onto the front row and had an incident in race one, dropped all the way to the back, and then had to work his way all the way back through the field in the second race at Spa. Got into, I think, that like top 6, top 7. I'm keen to see what he can do if he can be right behind Aaron Babber again. Maybe he can try and take Babber away from victory.
Absolutely. We always love a good bit of competition in these races, and from what I understand, Babber is definitely going to be the one to beat over the rest of this season, and we saw that at Spa. His pace was very good indeed. Of course, the inverted grid for the feature race did make his life a little bit harder, but still nonetheless proved himself to be one of the top drivers in this series. And from what I understand, last season he basically went on a dominant run the entire time, so definitely looking for more competition this time round as people just finishing up their practice laps. It's always interesting in practice because realistically you don't fully know what everyone's doing. Are people just doing long runs? Are they just doing a few laps to see where their pace is? Are they trying to work out fuel? Are they doing quali laps? You just don't know what people are doing in these practice sessions. I definitely have experienced sometimes where people in these sessions will just absolutely go balls to the wall, qualifying laps over and over, and they'll end the practice session top of the timing sheets, but when it came to practicing for the race, they'd maybe mess up a little bit. Maybe they'd get their fuel ever so slightly wrong. If there's a pit stop involved, oh god, they might pit for tyres when they don't need to. And that's the thing, as a driver, you've just got to practice everything with the limited amount of time you have. And usually the top drivers are used to that. They know exactly where they need to improve, where they need to work on their races for these events. And well, that's why usually the guys up at the top are not only quick, but consistently quick. That's what you got to improve on.
Yes, certainly indeed. As all Matt Strand there, going a bit wide, heading out of turn number 10 and heading down towards the horrible little chicane. It's very easy just to throw your car deep and hit the gravel, and of course then ruin your lap time and end up getting gravel all over the circuit on the exit of the chicane. So of course that's the one thing you want to avoid around here. Then of course final corner, Ari Lyndike, the final part of the circuit, and as you see there, Romano going up into 9th place. And does Matt Strand find an improvement? I don't think they will. After their mistake, no, stays down in 13th position at the moment to 35.653. So it wasn't that far off his personal best. As we look at the top, though, of course, it is Aaron Baba that has the quickest time at 1:34.625, and then we have Christoph Herbeno in 2nd place, followed by Philip Hammer, Felix Votter, and then Corey Lazarus, of course, our feature race winner from last time out. So interested to see what Corey can do this week. Of course, I suppose had a little bit of luck in that last race. Of course, lots of battling, people getting shuffled back behind. But maybe that helped him carry some momentum possibly into round 2.
Yeah, championships are all about building that momentum, and as soon as you have one bad race, it really can go horribly, horribly wrong. As I'm sure many of us motorsport fans have seen over the years, when a driver is in their little zone, you know, over the course of a season, they're near unstoppable. But as soon as they get one little slip up, even if something slightly goes wrong, it can just topple an empire. So you've got to be really careful as a driver, especially in sim racing, where a lot of the time you're working by yourself. You've got to manage just everything around you, all the drivers, and it can be really, really stressful a season like this, because you don't know what other drivers are going to do. You don't know who might turn up on the day and absolutely blitz the rest of the field, because it can happen. Some drivers can be mid-pack and then they come to their favourite track and immediately they're a second quicker. So you just got to always prepare for the worst, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, one example here would be Vince Peters at the moment, of course, in P11, 7/10 off. Last season was constantly on the back of Aaron Baba, so this probably just isn't his circuit here, or maybe he's just let it off a bit and gonna go full beans in the qualifying. But yeah, certainly there is a few drivers that you can see a little bit further off compared to where they normally are. I mean, a good example of someone who's a lot higher than expected is Matthew Colley, currently in P7. They're just over 6/10 off the back of Aaron Baba, someone who's normally a little bit further down in this field. Of course, was, I believe, pro last season, but this season has gone up to pro am, and see checkered flag is being waved, so the drivers will finish their final runs in this practice session, and then we'll head our way into our 20-minute open qualifying, which is a bit different to normal, isn't it? We don't normally have an open qualifying here on iRacing, but for this Porsche Cup, we certainly do. And to be fair, I haven't seen any issues with it. I think it's quite nice to see them all out together.
I would agree. I think as a spectator, definitely an open qualifying is amazing. It's brilliant to watch, but as a driver, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. I hate it doing it because a driver can mess up your lap very, very easily. You know, you might catch a slower driver. You know, some other guys might be getting the benefit of slipstream. It's very frustrating as a driver. And of course, when it works, there's not an issue with it at all. It's brilliant. But as soon as something does go wrong, especially for top drivers, when, you know, they're on the perfect lap, they're improving by like a tenth or two and finally might get provisional pole, and then an AM or a pro-am, you know, spins in front of them, and especially with the new debris system in iRacing, gravel gets flung onto the track and then you have no grip and your lap's ruined. So you really have to take care in these open qualifying sessions. You want to be right up at the front or at the back. You don't really want to be in the middle, because then you're just sandwiched right in between everyone, and that's when it can get really, really annoying. I mean, even you can see here that Aaron Baba and Herbeno are both just flim-flaying each other, you know, oh no, you go past, oh no, you go past, it's fine, it doesn't matter, I didn't want the slipstream anyway. And perhaps Baba doesn't really care at this point, probably just wanting track position, and Herbeno thinking, nope, I want the slipstream, I want the extra benefit. And we'll see as they come around the last corner for the first time onto the main straight, and who will be able to get the benefit of one another. Is it going to be Herbeno with that slipstream, or is Baba in clear air going to absolutely blitz the rest of the field? We should wait and see.
Yeah, we'll see what Aaron Baba can do. We'll go on board with Aaron as well as he heads his way on this opening lap. Of course, a 20-minute qualifying, so if you do make mistakes, you can afford to go again as he just heads his way through towards turn 2 and then the banked turn 3, taking it wide and then going to bring it back around on the exit, jumping onto the curb as you head your way up into a bit of a what I like to call roller coaster section of this circuit, up the hill in towards turn number 7. Of course, keeping it to the left, then you can bring it into the right hander. Try not to touch that grass on the inside and try not to touch the gravel on the exit here as you head into turn number 8. You're going to hop the curb and not hit the yellow, and then of course you can afford to run it wide as you head your way down into turn number 9, hitting the apexes nicely so far here for Aaron Baba, and hopefully that car there doesn't quite get in the way as he heads in towards turn number 10. Could have certainly caused a bit of a visual distraction there for Aaron Baba. Now as we head our way down towards the final couple of corners into the chicane, of course braking late there just after the 100 metre, get the car in, you can hop the curbs as you head your way through and try not to dip a wheel into the gravel as you head your way into the chicane and then into Ari Line Dog, the final corner on this circuit. Brilliant job so far here by Aaron Baba, and we'll see what this lap time will be. Of course, set a 1:34.6 in the practice session. What can he do on his opening run here in qualifying as he heads up to the line now? It will be a 1:34.774.
And interestingly, Herbigno did not have a great opening lap, but maybe preparing himself for future laps, as Philip Hammer, on the other hand, has had a pretty decent opening lap. Only 3 tenths off of Aaron Baba, but as you can see right now, he is right in the mix of all of the cars, and it's just not going to be helping him in any way, shape or form. I would hate being in Philip Hammer's position right now. He's got about 3 or 4 cars in front and behind him, and you can see just in the distance there, he was right up someone's chuff. I didn't quite manage to see who it was, but yeah, he's not having a great time at all. The number 74 he's behind. I'm going to quickly have a scan. That's Hinwist. Hinwizit. There you go. You can pronounce names better than I can, and there you go. That was a slight mistake for the Belgium, and that's definitely going to hinder Philip Hammer's laps. So this one will not be of any use, and he's immediately catching the next car in front. So this is what I was talking about. You want to be right at the front or right at the back because, yeah, he is suffering.
He certainly is, as of course our first lap times are coming through. A brilliant lap there by Jonathan Lindelof, P6 at the moment in the AM category, and Matt Strand as well up into the top 4 as a Pro-Am. So a few more of our Pro-Ams and AMs working their way up the field, as here is Christophe Herbigno again. I think we'll be looking to set another lap as Aaron Baba goes quicker again at 1:34.595, and we'll see what sort of lap times we can get here, as that will be Felix Votter jumping up into 3rd, and then Joran England into P6 as we have Marco Van Look as well up into the top 4, just 6 tenths shy of Aaron Baba, and then we have Jentel Van Tielen up into 3rd place, just over half a second. But what a lap that was from Aaron Baba, 1:34.595. Half a tenth separates himself in 2nd place.
I mean, this is what he does, isn't it? It could just be like this for the rest of the season. Oh dear. Let's see over the next 15 minutes if anyone can get anywhere near that. And like we were talking about earlier, qualifying matters a lot round here. So, you know, sure, we might get into the feature race, and when we come to the invert, it might make things a little bit more interesting as Lazarus goes into 3rd place. It's very close between 6th and 2nd. And then you've got the half a second gap up to Aaron Baba. So even about a 10th and a half back to Romano as well. So it's very, very close from, I want to say, all the way down from 18th up to 2nd. It's only about a second between all of those guys. So I think any of those places are up for grabs right now. Some of the AMs really have an opportunity to gain some points. And some of the Pro-Ams like Van Look and Romano really, really close to making themselves onto the 2nd or even the 1st row of the grid if they can really push the car hard enough. We'll just have to wait and see as some other drivers coming into the pits as Herbigno goes into 2nd place, but still 3.5 tenths off. But the first man, apart from Baba, to go into the 34s.
Indeed, a brilliant lap there by Christoph Herbino, of course, will be heading back to the pits as we are 6 minutes into our session, just under 13 to go here. As of course we do have Lucas Romano on circuit, P8 at the moment in the Pro-Am category. Was a pro last season, season number 1, and becoming Pro-Am for this one. Of course, second in the Pro-Am category at the moment on circuit, just over 7/10 back from Erin Baba's time. As we do have there Vince Peters jumping up into the top 8 there, just shy of 7/10 off the back of Erin Baba, who I believe is on a lap, and we'll see if Erin is on any sort of improvement. As we do see there, Corey Lazarus up into second place, just over 3/10 off of pole position, and of course taking a win last time out in Spa, certainly reigniting a bit of fire here for Corey Lazarus, and now he sits himself on the provisional front row of the field, but we have still got around 12 minutes to go, so a lot of time for all those behind to find their improvements and get closer to the time of Erin Baba, who I don't believe is on an improvement at the moment.
Yeah, weirdly, what Erin Baba does from what we've seen from him so far this season is he gets his quickest laps out the way and then can't quite seem to match them as the session goes on. He did this, I think, when we went to Spa as well. He did his first or second qualifying lap and it was just absolutely blitzed the rest of the field. And he's kind of done the same thing here, so we'll keep an eye on that over the next 10 or so minutes, see if he can get anywhere near that time, as his last lap was about 4/10 slower than his quickest lap. Maybe could just be taking the car for a bit of a cruise, cooling down those tyres, because we all know iRacing, these tyres get hot extremely quickly, and then once they are hot, very difficult to cool them back down again. That's one way to cool them down, as Christoph Herbino goes off into the first corner after completing another lap. I think he was trying to set himself up for another go, but just went far too deep into turn 1, and now has to set himself up for another lap.
Of course, just exploring the limits here of how late that he can brake, and of course that time it was a little bit too late for Christoph Herbino, and hopefully it doesn't get in the way of the car behind if they're on a lap, of course, as here we have Matthew Collin in P21 at the moment, just heading his way through the final corner and heading up towards the line. Will it be an improvement here for Matthew Collin? Of course, was up in the top 7 earlier on, and stays in, no, never mind, goes up into the top 10, 135.296, a brilliant lap there by Matthew Collin, and now jumps up into second in the Pro-Am category, and the gaps now are looking a little bit better than they were in the practice session. The top 11 separated by 8.5 tenths, and the top 22 separated by just over 1.5 seconds. Some very nice gaps here, and if you ignore the 3/10 gap to Erin Baba, then it's only 1.2 seconds between second and 22nd.
Yeah, compared to practice where it was a little bit more spread out than this, but especially in a qualifying session, it is extremely close right now, especially great to see. And yeah, like you said, take out Baba, who's just cheating at this point. It is even closer, so it's brilliant, this qualifying session so far, and it's really up for grabs for a lot of people. So I cannot wait to see where everyone ends up at the end.
Indeed, it will be a really good ending to qualifying here. Of course, that fight for pole might not be on that much, but then it's that battle for the top 10 and those other higher positions, as we do have Matt Strand there jumping up into P9, a 6.9 tenths off the back of our top timers. That will also be Kenny Herrimans heading up to the line and goes 5th there at 135.064, so nearly into the 134s, but just can't quite get there. Still has around half a tenth to gain to be able to do that. So yeah, very good and very close here at the top, just 2 tenths separating Lazarus and Van Thielen, and that really shows how good the racing can be when we go into the race. Of course, they're all going to be so close together. They've all got parts of the circuit where they're quicker than others, so it's going to create a really interesting race, and keen to see how aggressive the drivers will be. Do you think they're going to be more aggressive than normal because they know how close the gap is, or do you think they're just going to be content on just looking to find opportunities without pushing it?
I mean, they're racing drivers, right? We all know what they do. They won't settle for anything. You just can't. That's the thing. This is one of the few sports where most of the time you can't really settle. There's a few times where, yeah, maybe there's, you know, if you're fighting for a championship, it's probably better to just play it safe. But, you know, this early into a championship, what have you got to lose? And at a track where track position is so important,
Yeah.
I mean, if I was one of these guys, I would send it. I mean, I'm silly. I understand that. And it's risky, sure. But, I mean, you have nothing to lose. And at the end of the day, we're all here to win. So I think these guys should absolutely just send it, as clearly, by the looks of a lot of the drivers, they are doing, which is good to see. I love watching these drivers push themselves to the absolute limit. As Hinvis actually went off there, and Aaron Baba's stopping on track and then going again. I think he was letting someone through on the final corner, and now getting ready for another run.
Indeed, as George Tyler jumping up into P14, bringing that gap now to a second for the top four. Well, near enough a second for the top 14. Very close indeed here, as this is Owen Baba on a lap now. Of course, hasn't found an improvement since his second run, about 5 minutes in, and we're now 13 minutes in. So Owen Baba here will be looking to try and jump a little bit higher in terms of the position gap to Corey Lazarus in second place, who can also easily find some big improvements, as hopefully Erin doesn't get caught behind the car ahead of him and block him. That's the 2-1-4, so that'll be Jentel van Tielen as Aaron Baba heads his way through, and I don't think that was an improvement at all. Now he was a couple tenths slower, well, 4 tenths slower than his personal best there.
I do think some drivers are really struggling now towards the end of the session. I will quickly have a look, because I do know that some sessions in iRacing do tend to change as the session does go on. I know a couple of series that I compete in do that as well. It can be slightly frustrating, since you set all your quickest times at the start, and then as the session gets hotter and hotter, as the track condition worsens as well, with everyone out there spraying grass and dirt and marbles onto the track, it does get more frustrating. So I guess that's probably the issue. A lot of drivers are struggling to improve. You've kind of seen the best of most drivers. I think we might see a few improvements here and there, but I don't know if we'll see any massive jumps.
Yeah, certainly. We'll have to keep an eye on who's going to be looking to find those key improvements, as we do have Christoph Herbiner, who's up in the first sector actually, a 32.621, and sets his personal best in sector 1. But as we look at him there, he was a little bit onto the gravel there, so might have lost some time on that one, and in the end won't be able to set that key improvement. Corey Lazarus went for his quickest final sector, despite being over 2 seconds off on his personal best lap. So a little bit confusing there by Corey Lazarus. Many other first sectors are coming through. Philip Hammer here, a little bit off his personal best in sector 1. And yes, there we can see, of course, Herbino lifting off in sector 2 there, a 36.2 set by him, as we do have Navarro Dabova in 28th at the moment. Certainly needs to find some time, but it's interesting to say that 28th place is not even 2 seconds off the leader.
Yeah, he's really close between all of these drivers. And Zandvoort, you know, it's a fairly tricky track, to be fair. It's got a lot of technical corners on it, especially in that middle sector, where, you know, the high-speed nature of it, especially in a car as twitchy and unstable as this, it's really difficult to drag the car through there. It's really impressive to see a lot of these guys very close to one another, and once again take out Baba from the equation. And it's even closer, as he again set a 35.4 on that last lap. I definitely think he is trying to prepare the car more than anything, as Hammer and Lazarus both improved. That was a very good lap from Corey Lazarus. Yeah. Only a tenth and a half back. That was very good from the Kiwi. And especially considering he's probably on about 3 cans of Red Bull right now. It's, what, 8 in the morning, something like that in New Zealand right now. Although I do believe he lives in Australia, so slightly better, but not by much.
Just looking at his lap, actually, he matched Aaron Baba to the milliseconds in the second sector, both achieving the 34.259. As close as the margins can go here for Corey Lazarus and Aaron Baba. Of course, many other drivers still on their final couple of runs here in qualifying, as we have Mark Zach there up into P18 with a 35.739, just over a second from the leader, and matching the time of Becerra as well, who's in 19th place at the moment. As we do see, Aaron Baba though set a very good middle sector. He improves on his previous best here. So can Aaron Baba try and increase that gap to the lead to Corey Lazarus, as Herbino finds an improvement there, a 34.889, now just shy of 3/10 from the mark of Aaron Baba. Will Aaron find an improvement here to increase that gap even more, just under a 10th and a half? No, never mind, goes into the pits and nearly has a car hitting the back of him in the process.
Yeah, that is the trouble with having a pit lane on the main straight. Is some drivers aren't aware that you're coming into the pits. As well, I said we weren't going to get any improvements. What do I know? We were getting some improvements, and now we're getting a lot of them. Hammer now goes up to third, only 2/10 off. Herbino managed to improve as well, but still, no one can get within a 10th of Aaron Baba. So I think it was his second qualifying lap. That just was amazing from him, and no one else can get really that much nearer. As I think it's just some, pro-ams and some of the pros still left out there. As Colin, that was a very good lap from himself, puts himself onto a provisional pole for the pro-ams into 8th place. That was a great lap time from him. And of course, if he finishes in 8th, he'll be on pole for the feature race. So he probably will want to stay there.
Certainly would indeed, as here's Matt Strand. We'll see what Strand can do. We'll be looking to, of course, find an improvement. And let's see, what can Strand do? Of course, second in Pro-Am at the moment. Heading up to the line now. Where can he go? Will he be staying 10th? He certainly will be. Wasn't enough there to find an improvement, as I don't think many more people are on a lap at the moment. A lot of people have finished their final runs and won't be going again. Here's Philip Hammer. He's on a personal best in the first sector, 4,000ths down in the middle. Is it enough to try and improve on position? To the line. And is it enough? No. Stays in third.
Yeah, that was very, very cutting it close at the end there. And I don't think we're going to see any other drivers. Really, I'm not seeing many improvements from anyone. So that should realistically be it. We're seeing a couple of drivers doing burnouts into turn 1. So yeah, I definitely think this is probably going to be the end of the qualifying session. But it's been very interesting to see kind of where everyone is and how far people are willing to push themselves. And will they be able to replicate that? Oh, someone was pushing themselves very hard, as that was a spin and dragging gravel onto the racing line coming through turn 12. But that is going to be it for the qualifying session, as we should be jumping straight into the first heat race.
Indeed, and we'll have a look at the grid for our first race of the evening. So it will be Aaron Baba on pole position, ahead of Corey Lazarus, our race winner from last time out, with Philip Hammer, Christoph Herbino and Felix Votter running at the top 5. Then we have Kenny Heremans, Vince Peters, and then our Pro-Am pole sitter, Matthew Collin in 8th. Ahead of Jentel Van Tielen in 9th and Mats Strand running at the top 10. Then we'll have Marco Van Luck in P11, Miles Hemming in 12th place. Then we'll have Lucas Romano in 13th, ahead of George Tyler and Griffin Him-Visit. Then we have Luke Andrews and our AM pole position City, Joran England, ahead of Milan Marczak. And then we'll have Jens Basser and Jonathan Lindelof running off the top 20. Then we have Jeleva Straiten, Steve Clays, Kevin Daniels, Daniel Faiska, Tommy Vidal, Jan Pelter-Pera. Then we have Kevin Soffro, Navarro Dabova, Loris Lapalou, Dirk Boots, Kevin Deckers, Brian Ritz, and then James Slate. So our top 33, and I believe over the past season and 2 races, that is the biggest grid we've ever had here.
That's always what you want to see, isn't it? A grid slowly evolving and getting bigger over time. And I mean, 33 cars here at Zandvoort, that's going to be interesting for a track that's not very big. But it's going to be entertaining, I think, especially towards when we get into the feature race, when we get some drivers that have had some incidents and they're maybe a lap down. That's really going to put some pressure onto the leaders. And speaking of putting pressure onto the leaders, this race start is going to be very, very important. So just keep an eye on drivers in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, because I think Lazarus is a very good starter in this car. So we'll wait and see what he can do as the 5 red lights now coming on.
It's certainly, and of course it will be Owen Babber ahead of Corey Lazarus here as 5 lights are on your screens, and they are out as we head our way to race 1 of the evening, and a poor start for Corey Lazarus, thanks to Aaron for jinxing him down towards turn 1, has lost 8 positions in the process and drops down to P9. Of course, Aaron Babber still has the lead ahead of Philip Hammer and then Christophe Urbaneau in 3rd as we have a battle here. This is between Van Thielen and I think Harriman's heading our way through, and that's going to be Harriman's into the barriers at turn 3. And then further down as well, another car having a spin off into the barriers as well at turn 2 as someone else gets pushed wide as well. I think that might have been possibly Straighten involved there.
Yeah, that was a very, very chaotic start. We had about 5 or 6 separate incidents there. And of course, Herman's with a big, big one coming through turn 3. I didn't quite manage to see who was the one that spun him round. But that was not a clean start from pretty much everyone 6th downwards. But the guys up at the front have absolutely no idea what just happened. We can take a look what happened. He's with the number, I can't quite see who that is, 214. Yeah. Oh, that's a bit of netcode as well. He's going to have huge damage on that Porsche. And another incident that happened behind him, I believe that was the 2 teammates. That was a very, very awkward start from a lot of people. The track really isn't wide enough for 3 wide, let alone 4 that some people were going. But Erin Babber out in the front, like I said before, no idea what's happened. And it's just getting his head down, on with the task at hand. And of course, yeah, like you saw, Lazarus with a dreadful start because for some reason I decided to name and shame a driver. So, yeah.
But the key thing is he's on, technically at the moment, pole position for the next race. So I suppose that could help him a little bit more in trying to fight again for some top positions or a podium. As here is Corey Lazarus heading up into turn 3 on the back of Mats Strand. Of course, looks very close to the rear of the Pro-Am driver. So we'll see if he can look to make a move as Romano is into the barriers on the exit of turn 3. And he's also out of the race, into the pits, and I think might be done in this one in 33rd place now. So we'll be starting all the way at the back, as here we have Strand again in P7 here. Of course, Lazarus closing in behind, and you can see they're just losing a bit of time to Vince Peters in 6th spot at the moment as we head our way through towards turn 9 and turn 10. And then looking back behind as well, of course, we have Miles Hemming with a decent start, and then Matthew Collin rounding off the top 10.
Yeah, 5 seconds from P10 to the leader already. That's a big old gap as we're only on the 2nd lap. And it just really goes to show how chaotic that first opening lap was. And, oh, that's a bit wide from Matt Strand, who has to let Corey Lazarus through on the exit of turn 12 there. And I don't know if that was strategic, but it definitely looked like he went a bit wide. Not much more that Matt Strand could do there as we head onto lap 3, onto the main straight. Van Look in the slipstream of Colin, but as you can see, not very effective and didn't really gain all that much on his fellow Pro-Am competitor. But if he can just push the car a little bit more through this middle section as Andrews gets past Lindelof up into 13th, he goes as Lindelof still in the lead of the AMs. Very good start for him. Was all very wide for, I believe that's Miles Hemming, who's now going to come under pressure from both Colin and Van Look. So really have to be careful as now Van Look is looking up the inside of Colin, but everyone chooses the safe option not to fight going into turn 7. And that's probably the good thing to do. There's a little bit of a bump there for Van Look up the back of Colin. And I have the feeling this battle is going to get a bit heated.
Yes, it certainly looks like it's starting to heat up. Of course, George Tyler is looking to get involved and has the same livery as, I believe, Miles Hemming. So we'll see if possibly that can work to some advantage for those two. I believe that will be the Cube Controls Rapato course team that these two are part of as we head our way down in towards the chicane once again. Of course, George Tyler qualified, I think, in 14th and now runs in 12th, so not the worst start at all here for Tyler, as of course Luke Andrews, also part of the Cube Controls Reparto course team, is in 13th, looking to try and close up a little bit more to Tyler ahead, and of course try and shut down Jonathan Lindelof in 14th place, who's looking to gain in and possibly jump into 13th. Of course, our leader for the AM category, and of course Pro-Ams it's Strand, and then Pros it's Erin Baba.
Oh, no surprise there. He is bridging the gap to Philip Hammer now. It's just about a second. Oh, that's very deep. And a spinner there as well. That's Sofru who spun. And Steve Clays was the driver that we were with who went off into turn 1. And I think Sofru had that all by himself. I didn't notice any other cars that he was with, but I could be wrong. This is what happened to Clays, though. We saw him just going too deep into turn 1. Was it contact? Or, that was definitely too deep, and it's so easy to make that mistake. Was it Sofru? Oh dear, yes it was. That was far too much speed into turn 1. I think he mistook this car for a GT3, not a Porsche Cup car. This car doesn't have much downforce, Sofru. It can't do that. But it's unfortunate for those two who've now slipped all the way back to 30th and 26th respectively as well. Steve Clays is trying to make that better. There was a slight bit of contact there with Bouts, who is now going to try to dive him up the inside. More contact there as we head into turn 10. Round the outside is not really the best line through there, but Steve Clays is just about hanging on. And unfortunately for Bouts, he has to leave him in the room as Clays goes up the inside into turn 11. And that should be 23rd place and the beginning of a comeback for Steve Clays over the course of the next 5 laps. Where can he get up to? I mean, realistically 22nd, as is then a 6-second gap to Daniels in 21st. Also got some action up front as well. As you can see, Colin got a bit wide as Miles Hemming is fighting for his life out there trying to keep these two Pro-Ams behind.
Yeah, not sure what happened there, but there must have been some sort of contact or a little bit of miscommunication between those three heading in towards turn 1. A decent exit there by Maiko Van Lockheed, looking to get ahead of Miles Hemming as we head our way through turn 6 into turn 7. It will be the outside line here for Maiko Van Lock. It could be a superb move, and it certainly is, by the Belgian driver, overtaking the Dutch driver and up into 9th place, and can look to try and close down possibly on his class leader. As of course you can see as well, Matthew Collin looking to go around the outside in towards turn 9, goes a little bit deep. That could also bring George Tyler onto the attack as well to try and make a move himself and get up into the top 10, or get closer to it, we should say, here as they exit turn 10 now, down towards turn 11 at chicane. And I think for now the battling might be a little bit over, as I think there it was Jentel Van Thielen making a bit of a mistake further ahead.
You're absolutely right. That was well spotted, as I think he went way too wide into turn 12, and that's really opened up the fight between himself and Peters. So this should be quite a good battle going into the first corner, as Van Thielen squeezing him nearly into the wall, and that could have been a chaotic little accident, and it's not over. They're squeezing each other on the main straight. Peters has got to be very careful, as Van Thielen does not want to lose this place at all. Bit sideways coming out the first corner. It's still Van Thielen squeezing Peters all the way to the white line, but Peters is keeping his nose in there, and that's very deep from Van Thielen. It's going to open up Lazarus to try and get past Peters, and possibly Van Thielen as well if the run is good enough. And he's got the speed, but Peters has just about managed to keep his car in there. There's a bit of contact. Lazarus gets sideways, but just manages to keep it pointing in the straight line. And that was a very close few corners. What's Lazarus going to do here? Sensibly backs out of that one. And wow, that was a very, very aggressive few corners from our 5th, 6th and 7th place fighters, as Votter, I think, has now managed to get himself up into the podium places, as Herbigno has made a mistake. But wow, I don't know what you made of Van Thielen's defence there, Nathan, but that was a bit aggressive for my liking.
Yes, very, very aggressive, and could have easily ended up in an accident if it was someone of his aggressiveness as well. But of course we'll see how that plays out over the course of the race and see what Peters can do next to try and find a move and get up into the top 5. Of course, Lazarus there just sitting and waiting for something to happen here. Would certainly love to be involved in this battle here and jumping back up into the top 5 after a poor start from second. And of course on the front row as we head our way back down to turn 1 again. The gaps are closing and Peters is looking for a move. You can see Lazarus there just trying to get himself into the best position in case these two go deep in towards turn number 1. We head our way through. Very nice so far by these two. A little bit deep though for Lazarus into turn 1 and loses a little bit of momentum on the exit.
Yeah, Lazarus nearly managed to get close enough to Peters, but like you said, just got a bit too wide coming out of turn 2 and couldn't quite manage to close up the way he wanted. I think this battle's going to settle down for this lap unless Peters can try and get close enough in the next few corners to have a send on Van Tielen. I think the 214 is really feeling the pressure now. He's now bringing Matt Strand into the fight, so excuse me, we're really going to have an interesting battle going on for 5th place towards the end of this race. This man, one mistake and it cost him close enough to about a second, and oh, Peters got so close to the back, and Lazarus might look at this and fancy himself a move at 6th place, but Peters got quite a good exit and there was not much that the Kiwi could have done there. And now as we head through the final few corners on lap 7, we will begin lap 8 once we come around the turn 13 banked corner, and this is where I think it really will begin. Drivers are going to get their elbows out and drivers behind are going to get very aggressive on the brakes. We've already seen it a couple of times this race. Are we going to see it right at the front of the field? Peters getting close, but I don't think he'll be close enough on this lap to go for a move, and that's what I've been talking about. The slipstream just is not powerful enough, as Peters has actually gone a little bit wide. I don't think Lazarus is close enough. He's not. But these tiny little mistakes, Peters can't afford to do that. He needs to be inch perfect on this lap.
It certainly does. I mean, looking at Van Tielen, we know he's defending very aggressively, and that's where Peters has got to kind of set himself into a position where he's maybe around a 10th behind and can just afford to make a lunge. Carrying it side by side is going to be difficult because we know Van Tielen's going to really squeeze him as much as he can. But if Peters can make a send, there's nothing that Van Tielen can do against that. So that's what Vince Peters has got to be, you know, looking out for here, looking for those opportunities just to send it up the inside into a couple of the heavy braking zones, as this is a big battle behind. Look at this here, Lawrence Lepleau leading all these cars away, 25th down towards 30th place, as we have James Slates there in P28 at the moment. Of course, started right at the back, so at least has made a few positions at the start of this one. Steve Clays also drops down a place, as we also see here Navarro Dabova in the blue, orange and green car as we head our way into turn 9. And here is Felix Votter and Christoph Herbeno fighting for 3rd place in this one there. The German going a bit wide through Ari Leindijk and of course touching a bit of gravel, but for now he's still looking in a decent position here. Hasn't got to worry too much about Herbeno into turn 1 as they head onto the brakes, and Votter still stays in 3rd, but knows that Herbeno is not here to mess around and will be looking to make a move and get back up into 3rd. I think yet again Peters, this time a little bit too far back from Van Tielen.
Yeah, this is the trouble when you're really ragging the car out behind another guy trying to desperately get past, is sometimes you end up pushing that little bit too hard and you just start making those tiny little mistakes, which Peters is now doing. And he's just got to cool down for a little bit and just focus on the task at hand, as Colin getting very close to Miles Hemming, as he's been really trying to get past for the last few laps but hasn't really been close enough to be able to make the move. He's in a bit of a sandwich right now, probably not enjoying it, as I can imagine Tyler's going to look for a move at any possible opportunity to help out his teammates. You can see there, they're just putting pressure on one another, and it's making them all go quite a bit slower. I mean, Van Look, who overtook Hemming, of course, a few laps ago, is now nearly 3 seconds ahead. So that's how much this fighting has cost these guys. But, you know, for that elusive top 10 spot, it can be oh so important come the end of the season for those points, especially for a driver like Colin, who possibly could be fighting for the championship. We would just have to wait and see.
Certainly, as here we are, lap 10 of 10. The white flag is out here, so one more lap for Aaron Babber to take in this first race, and then of course we have another race after this. Of course we'll have our 5-minute warm-up and then have a feature race of the evening, and of course then we'll see if Aaron Babber can continue his lead at the top. But of course there is a reverse grid for the top 8 as here's a move from Herbino and spins round Felix Votter, but luckily Votter is a little bit ahead of Van Tielen and can still keep that P4 spot, as here we have Vince Peters again looking to find a move ahead of Jentel Van Tielen. He's a little bit too far back here as they head into turn 7 and yet again can't find that move. But the key thing here is, as it stands going into the feature race, Peters starts ahead of Van Tielen. Now that could help Peters here because he knows it's going to be hard to get past, but can he play Van Tielen at his own game in defence?
I think this is really going to heat up now as we head through turn 9 for the first time as Peter sends it, and that is an immediate incident. Somehow they've both amazingly managed to keep it pointing in the right direction, but that through turn 9 was very, very desperate, and we're just going to have to look at what Corey Lazarus is now going to do. A bit of contact there as well, but we're going to have to wait and see as Babber getting very, very close to getting the victory in this first heat race. But this, the battle for 5th, was amazing on this last lap and somehow has ended relatively cleanly as Aaron Babber takes the victory in this opening heat race, and it was a commanding performance by him. Van Tielen ends up finishing in 4th, and wow, all the drivers behind Peters still managed to finish in 6th. Lazarus in 7th. Strand in 8th will be starting on pole. And in the end, I believe Hemming and Tyler managed to overtake Colin as well. Oh, that's very wide from both drivers. That was Marzak and Deckers coming around the last corner, both trying to outdrive each other as they come across the line 23rd and 24th. But on that last lap, I don't really know what Peters was thinking there. That was a very desperate move into, I think it was turn 10 actually. But wow, I mean, Smooly, if we could grab a replay of that, that was just amazing. Entertaining racing between all of those guys. It was brilliant to watch, but maybe a bit over the top.
Yes, certainly. And I've got to say, nice sportsmanship there from Herbino, of course, after spinning round Votter at turn 3, slow down at the line and let Votter go through and take 3rd place. So very nice there from Christoph Herbino, and we'll shortly see our results for our first race of the evening. It was, of course, Aaron Babber that took the victory, a 2.5 ahead of Philipp Hammer in 2nd place, and then our second German, Felix Votter, finishing in 3rd ahead of Christoph Herbino after their little bit of contact on the final lap. And then we have Jentel Van Tielen ahead of Vince Peters, Corey Lazarus in 7th, and then Matt Strand in 8th, who will be at pole position, sit up for the second race of the evening. And then we have Michael Van Look in 9th and Miles Hemming rounding out the top 10. Of course, Jonathan Lindelof in 14th, our leader for the AM category, and then Joran Engelen and Jeleva Strayton 2nd and 3rd in the AMs, of course, with Matt Strand, Michael Van Look and Matthew Collin, our podium sitters for the Pro-Am category.
Well, this second race is going to be even more interesting than the first, especially with Matt Strand on pole. That could be absolutely huge for the Pro-Am Championship. I mean, if he can even finish inside of maybe the top 5, that's going to be a huge boost for him. And just a reminder for anyone who hasn't watched the ARA Porsche Cup series that we did a few weeks ago, Matt Strand was actually the only Pro-Am driver to win an overall race. He did it in quite unique circumstances. I think it was a race at Indianapolis Road, and it was a mixed wet race, so it was kind of dry-ish at the start, and then over the next 10 minutes it became torrential, and he was the only driver at the start of the race to select wet tyres, and clearly it worked. He got first place on the last corner of the last lap. It was brilliantly entertaining stuff, and I do recommend anyone go watch the Indianapolis race from, I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was amazing. So, you know, he has some experience winning races. So he actually, I'd say, has a pretty good chance of getting a good result.
Certainly, we'll have to see what he can do. But we are here in our warm-up, and why we're here, we're going to have a quick word from KGL. And welcome back, everybody. Of course, KGL Sim Racing is one of the sponsors of this series, so make sure to go and check them out at kglsimracing.com to have a look at their products line. But we have just over a minute to go in the warm-up stage, and I know you do a bit of racing on iRacing, Aaron. Would you tend to go out on circuit in a warm-up, or do you kind of sit in the pits, go and have a drink, pop to the toilet, and have a bit of a reset?
The latter, honestly. Like, after doing hours of practice and qualifying and the race non-stop, honestly, from what I understand, most drivers do use it as a bit of a break. You know, just like you said, give yourself time to, you know, reply to any messages that you've been ignoring because we're doing pretend race car. You know, have a drink, get something to eat, anything. So, I mean, 5 minutes is more than enough time to, you know, have a bit of a relaxing time before the feature race inevitably begins, and then, well, yeah, you'll just end up all exhausted and sweaty again. But yeah, I think the only time you realistically do go out in these warm-ups is if you have had a bad start, or if there's a corner that you want to see, okay, if there's anything I'm doing wrong, or, importantly, if the weather changes. That could be quite important. But most of the time, you're probably fine, and I can imagine a lot of the drivers, I mean, if we can see right now, yeah, about a third of the grid are on track. Everyone else is probably doing what you said.
Yes, certainly. As we have our warm-up now conclude, and we did actually have a couple of cars set a lap. Philip Hammer, George Tyler and Daniel Faisker all setting a lap in that warm-up session. Of course, getting themselves ready for the race, and then of course we'll see our starting grid very, very shortly for this one. And of course it is a top 8 reversed grid, so it will be Matt Strand starting on pole for this one, ahead of Corey Lazarus back on the front row again. Aaron, I'm not going to let you talk about Corey this time because I don't want him to end up dropping down to P10 after one corner. And then of course we have Vince Peters in third, Jensel Van Tillen in fourth, with Christoph Herbeno, Felix Votter, Philip Hammer and Aaron Baba our top 8, with Marco Van Luck in 9th and Miles Hemming rounding out the top 10. Then we have George Tyler in P11, followed by Matthew Collin in 12th. We'll have Luke Andrews in 13th, ahead of Jonathan Lindelof for the AMP category. Then we'll have Griffin Himvisit, Kenny Harrimans, Joran Englund, Jelliver Strayton, Jan Peltapera, and then Daniel Faisker rounding out our top 20. And then we have Kevin Daniels, Steve Clays, Milan Markzak, Kevin Deckers, Loris Laplu, Dirk Boats, James Slate, Safro Vidal, Debova, Romano, Bassett and Ritz, as we now get our way into our 20-lap race here. Race 2 around Zandvoort. 5 red lights here. And they're away, and a good start from our top 2, and Lazarus this time does get away quite well and could actually look to send the move into turn 1 to take the lead, goes to the inside, but isn't quite close enough. Van Thielen giving him a bit of a tap there into turn 1, and then we can see Peters there looking to defend here from Felix Votter as we head our way through. Herbeno as well looking to make a move against Votter. These two had a bit of contact here on the last lap of race 1 this time. Herbeno gets that move done early and jumps up into P5, and we see there Aaron Babber ahead of Philip Hammer as well, jumping up into 7th already, making those key moves and looking to close down another victory and to make it 3 out of 4.
Well, that was a pretty good start from Aaron Babber. Just about managed to get himself up into 7th place. Any other grid movers that we've had, both starters up 8 places, up into 24th place. That was a brilliant start from him. As Andrews, I believe, has had a spin, as that looks like a few cars have maybe been involved in that. Don't spin the car again, Andrews, as he desperately tries to get on the power again. That was a bit of a naughty move, and there's another car sent into the barriers, and that was Marcus Zach. Unfortunately for him, another car in the wall. That's Hermans again, and another car round. Honestly, can't keep up with all the things that are happening. That's Dirk Bouts, who's been sent all the way spinning on the exit of turn 10 and into into turn 11, and more contact again. Can we just calm down for a second? It's getting worse, and that's a few. That is about 3 or 4 different cars. Oh, it's getting. Oh dear.
Oh my.
Oh my lord.
What if we just witnessed?
Oh, don't reverse, and it's
oh my, and that's. Oh dear me. What?
Yep.
What a start there. What an interesting first lap.
I mean, yeah, that's one way to put it. It just kept happening and happening and happening. I didn't really know what to make of that. As Pelotapera going into turn 1, trying to make a move on Hermans. Herman has gone very, very deep. The Finn's going to get a great exit there and puts himself into 22nd place. Not second. I mean, he'd love it if he was there. After the amount of crashes we had on that first lap, I wouldn't be surprised if they were fighting for second. But that was a huge lockup for Markazak, and that's a huge hit. And then a bit of a dangerous rejoin straight onto the racing line. And I can imagine that's going to be quite a hefty penalty. And then a few drivers also. I mean, look at the two drivers there reversing back onto the track. And yeah, it just kept happening and happening. As Matt Strand, he's still leading the race. He's doing a bloody good job, is the Norwegian. He's absolutely ragging this Porsche Cup car and defending from some of the most experienced Porsche Cup cars, Porsche Cup drivers over the last few seasons. Lazarus being a fantastic driver himself. Baba has managed to get up into 6th place, by the way, into that last corner, managed to get past Votter and continuing his progress all the way up to, well, wherever he needs to get to. 20 laps is a long old race, this one. And if Matt Strand can somehow hold on to the lead of this race, it will be sensational.
It certainly would be. A Pro-Am winning here. It would be really, really interesting, as here's Jonathan Lindelof looking to get ahead of Matthew Collin to put himself into P11 here. Has the outside line in towards turn one. A brilliant race so far by Lindelof, of course. A great evening as well, a decent qualifying spot. Decent result in race one, and now looking to challenge the top 10 in race two. That's Lazarus off the circuit at turn two. Drops down to P10. And of course, last time it was lap one, turn one. This time it was lap three, turn two. A big shame. Let's see what happened here to Lazarus. Was side by side with Matt Strand for the lead. And does he just make a bit of contact? Oh, no. I think it was slight contact, but more than anything, just lost the rear under braking there. I think was just trying to send it in a bit too much. And then, of course, tried to hit the brakes because he was going to hit Strand. And then, of course, that sent him off into a spin as someone else there is in the barriers. That being Dirk Bout again.
Yeah, he's had a bit of an awkward run. Actually, Baba has lost a place here. Actually lost 2 places, I think. As remember, of course, he gained a place because of Lazarus and has now lost 2. He's back behind Votter and Hammer as Van Thielen there going into the lead of the race. But let's see what happened to Baba. This is coming through into turn 9. Does he just lose it under? He does. That's a very rare mistake from Aaron Baba, and it was a very tiny one as well. Just ever so slightly lost the rear of the car, but it just unsettled him enough to lose those few places, and that could really hinder his progress, as those first few laps are the best chances to overtake people. And Matt Strand is really coming under pressure here now. He could lose 2nd place as well to Peters, who himself is a William Esports Academy driver. Let's not forget that. And got a very, very good run out of turn one. Has Vince Peters. Just needs to keep the line nice and neat. But Matt Strand very much keeping the fight there. And there's contact, although they've both managed to, again, keep it pointing in the right direction. And Strand is now under pressure from Herbigno as well, as Vince Peters has managed to get past Herbigno now on the inside. That's definitely going to be a corner cut. Oh, actually pushes Matt Strand off of the track. And that was very aggressive from Herbigno. I thought that would certainly be a slowdown, but apparently not, as Votter now going up the inside. And Matt Strand, unfortunately for him, has gone from 1st all the way down to 5th in, well, basically just under a lap.
It's a big shame there for Matt Strand, who's now under pressure here, as that's going to be Erin Baba looking to make a move ahead of Philippe Hammer here to go back up into 6th spot, and has got the inside, well, the outside line heading down to the chicane. A bit of a risky one to make a send. Can he get ahead and into 6th place? He's going to take it to the outside. Ooh, nearly contact there between the two. And we do see there Aaron Baba up into P6 now. A brilliant move, opportunistic as well, to jump up into the top 6 there and get ahead of Philippe Hammer, as someone there has unfortunately seemed to have retired. I think it was Kenny Herriman's. Not going to continue in this one, as we head our way back down to turn 1 again. Let's see if there's any moves. This time further back we can see there Lazarus looking to get ahead of Van Luck and jumping back up into P9. Then also it seemed like Hemming was looking to make a move there.
Yeah, everyone's just really sussing each other out right now. As a little bit further back, we've got some fighting going on for, I believe this is 19th place that we're watching for right now, as Feiska really trying to hold on to 19th place, and actually does brilliantly. Pello Tapera right now trying to attack the car ahead, That's very, very wide for Lloris. They're getting very squirrely. Got a bit of damage on the rear end of his Porsche as well. And I think the Finn could potentially get past within the next few corners, as the Frenchman seems to be really, really struggling at the moment. The car does not look very healthy, and possibly one of the cars that was caught up in that first lap incident.
Yes, certainly could be the case. Could soon be a move there for Peltapera, as this is going to be Daniels versus George Tyler. So it must have been one of those that got involved in the contact on the opening lap. Of course, now in 23rd, looking to try and move his way up the field here. And of course, at the front there, look at Vince Peters, only a couple tenths back from Jensel Van Tielen. So that could still be a big battle to keep an eye on, as Luke Andrews makes a move ahead of Joran Engelen. And then, of course, here we can see, there we are, Luke Andrews up into 14th now. Engelen going to be under pressure here from Verstraeten as well, who, of course, is sitting third in the AM category. Of course, would like to get him into second place. As here we go, battle for the lead down towards turn one. Van Tielen's in the leading position. We have Herbino as well looking to make a move. Peters looking to shuffle him to the outside as we head into turn one. Herbino's made one move, he's looking to make two through the first corner. Can he get up into second place? He certainly can. Bit of contact and nearly both of them into the barriers. Vince Peters now drops down to third place and nearly dropping behind Felix Votter, and that could have certainly ended with Peters and Herbino in the barriers, but luckily they keep their cars on the track barely and can continue on. And we can see there Erin Babber just sitting back and just hoping that none of them end up crashing into him.
Well, yeah, he just is absolutely praying. And this is the thing, when you're in the midst of a fight right now at a narrow and twisty track like Zandvoort, you are just praying that everyone keeps it on the road, as we saw on lap one. When it all goes wrong, it just causes a pendulum effect, and then everyone behind starts to struggle. But here we go, Van Tielen, we saw in that opening heat race how long he can keep cars behind. Very aggressively, of course, but can he now do it for the next 15 or so laps against some of the most high-profile drivers in all of Porsche Cup racing on iRacing? As that's a spin for Lloris. Oh, coming back onto the track and crashes into Tyler, I think that was. And, yeah, well, that was not a good rejoin.
No, certainly not. And Tyler won't be happy with that, as that's Leplo again. I think just trying to get it back on the road, and unfortunately struggled in doing so. As here we go, battling again. Here is Herbino, who's in 11th place. Not sure what's happened there. I don't know if we can get a replay of what's happened to Herbino, but here we are, down towards turn number 12. Of course, looking to close in on the back of Van Tielen. Is it contact possibly, or just losing the rear? Ooh, loses the rear, and then I think just avoids a tap from Peters, but of course dropping down below Lazarus, and then of course all the cars behind. I think they're Matthew Collin ahead of him there. As of course in 11th there for Herbino, not the way he was hoping that would have gone there. Was Aaron Babat within a second of the lead, and all these rivals seem just to be binning it.
Yeah, I mean, that tends to be the way that you get past some drivers, is you just wait for them to make mistakes. And well, it's been working for Aaron Baba. Of course, he's not, clean himself. He made that mistake on, I believe it was, lap 2 or 3 earlier on. So still, this track is a big old difficult one if you're not paying attention. And even with that mistake, still in 4th. So just goes to show how on it he is today, as Matt Strand's now under pressure from Philip Hammer as well. And actually just willingly gave up that one, and probably the sensible thing to do, as now Philip Hammer up into 5th place. And Matt Strand, who, started first, is now slowly dropping back like a rock, and could potentially, if he's not careful, fall into the clutches of Van Look and Collin, who are only about a second behind now.
Yes, certainly could easily fall under a bit of pressure here, as here's Van Lock, of course, closing in on the back of Lazarus. Of course, got overtaken earlier on, but has just kind of stayed there in 9th ever since. Hasn't worried too much about Colin behind us. Herbino's looking to make a move into turn one more, just trying to scare Colin into going deep. But Colin's not having any of that and stays in P10 for now. Herbino, of course, looking to try and get up after making a mistake down at turn 12 on a couple of laps ago, as Lazarus gets ahead of Hemming. Hemming runs deep, allows Van Look as well to have a nice run here as they head their way up towards turn number 6 and 7 here. Van Look on the outside of Hemming. Can Van Look find the move? No, he can't, but you can see there Matthew Collin looking to make a send, and a bit of contact and looking to get through up into P9 goes Colin, and Herbino as well, nearly making it 3 wide into turn 8, and that is not wise at all as Colin and Van Look a bit of contact, and now Herbino looking to stick his nose up the inside into turn 9.
Well, that was extremely aggressive from Herbino, and really trying to rack the car as Van Look actually looking up the inside and manages to get back past Herbino, and that was a very cheeky move from Van Look, as there's been some overtaking up at the front as Herbino goes very deep on the brakes and just about manages to get the car stopped. And now into 10th place is the Belgian. And admittedly, Herbino is not a name I've seen in a while before this season. I used to race against him in Formula 3 about 3 or 4 years ago. So good to see him back here and racing, as look at Erin Baba now getting very aggressive. And this could be a move for P2 if he can get it done. Vince Peters now under pressure. Bit of contact between these two, but these Porsche Cup cars can handle it. Peters now getting the better run out of turn 2. But can he manage to hold on to the outside? No, Baba really needed to keep a hold of that inside line if he wanted to get past, but just was not feeling brave enough. And Vince Peters still the man in second place, and at the moment the only man in the position to put some pressure on Van Thielen. But if Baba can get past Peters within the next, I'd say, lap or two, I think it could only be a matter of time before he's back into first.
Certainly, but we know Van Thielen defends heavily. Of course, we saw it against Peters, and this time he's defending a race lead, so it could get very choppy between Baba and Van Thielen. Of course, Vince Peters in second place. Good to defend here from Erin Baba, who makes a bit of a dummy send in towards turn 10, but doesn't quite get it covered off and just stays in P3 for now, of course, as Herbino open to P8 as Hemmings had a bit of contact and spins off the circuit and drops all the way down to 16th place. Not been the best evening at all here for Miles Hemming. Let's see what happens here. Of course, Herbino there on the inside, and let's say fault there goes on to Herbino.
Yep, admittedly, I think Herbino definitely having a bit of a tricky race today, and definitely that incident was his fault, and I don't know what the stewards will say to that, but we'll just have to wait and see. As a little bit behind Herbino, this is getting very spicy between Colin, Lindelof and Van Look, as Lindelof is having a brilliant race. Now up into 9th if he can make this move stick. And that was a slowdown for Colin, I think, as he had to slam on it and let Van Look and Lindelof pass. I don't know where he would have gotten that slowdown from, as admittedly the track isn't really known for the slowdowns, to be fair. So, I don't know, maybe he crossed the pit exit line? The pit entry line? I'm not quite sure, but unlucky for him, as he's now lost a second and is now down to 11th.
And now under pressure here from Luke Andrews, who we know is a very quick driver here, the Brit. Well, it's from United Kingdom, so we'll see what he can do here. We head our way through in towards turn number 9 and 10. Of course, we can see him to sit behind as well in P13, looking to close in. Ooh, nearly making a bit of contact there with Luke Andrews in towards turn 10. Further ahead, we could see there that being Lindelof and Van Look still very close to each other. They'll be looking to keep going at this all race long, as here it's going to be Jens Besser looking to defend here, or at least get ahead of Miles Hemming, but Hemming keeps that P16 spot just for now, as we do see further ahead though, Vince Peters under pressure from Erin Baba once again.
Well, here we go. I think this could potentially be the move for Erin Baba. He's got an amazing run coming out the last corner, and he is literally inside of Vince Peters' Porsche Cup car, as very deep into the first corner goes Erin Baba, and round the outside he needs a better exit than he did the other lap, and I think he might be able to do it. Needs to hang it round the outside this time, and he does so. Now the inside line for turn 3, and this should be the move done and completed, and it is. They've lost a bit of time to the cars in front, but Baba has the pace to catch back up, and we will keep an eye on his pace over the next few laps. And Van Thielen better be prepared. He's probably been thinking about this the entire race. Where is Erin Baba, and will he be able to catch me? Well, he's right behind you, Van Thielen, and well, you best be prepared. You better get your elbows out like you did in that first heat, and you might be able to keep the race lead. But the battle for third now is going to really hot up, as Peters is really falling under pressure here. He's not had the best pace over the last few laps as Votter briefly looked up the inside, but just wasn't close enough. I must say as well, Philip Hammer, who was, what, 2 seconds behind these guys? Very, very impressive little stint from him over the last 5 or so laps, as he's right in the midst of this and could prove himself to fight for a podium spot.
Certainly could be. Of course, though, Baba has not really pulled away that much. He's gained a bit of time on Van Thielen, but not really pulled away from Peters at all, as both of them go a little bit deep into the gravel there at Harry Lyndyke. And let's see here, what can Felix Votter do? Can he look to close in here and possibly make a move? On Vince Peters, into turn 1 we go once again, lap 12 or 20, and it'll be Jentel Van Thielen. That leads the race ahead of Aaron Baba, and then Vince Peters in the third and final podium spots, as here's Lindelof defending from Van Lock, who's making a send to the inside. Lindelof has to go to the outside here through turn 1, very close to contact here between the two drivers. Pro-Am versus Am here as we head our way up to turn 3, and I think Michael Van Lock has got that move done. And there we can see Matthew Collin looking to make a send up the inside, couldn't make it work, and then Luke Andrews gets pushed a little bit onto the grass on the exit and still manages to pull it side by side here.
I honestly am surprised that these two are still side by side. That was very aggressive from Luke Andrews, but managed to just put Colin under enough pressure there and managed to sneak past. That was very, very good. And we'd love to see him do that again on maybe some cars in front of him. And you just love to see that when a driver plans a move out and executes it perfectly. But Colin's still there, still trying to poke his nose up the inside every now and then. And admittedly, Luke Andrews did go a touch wide there on turn 10, so maybe going to have to look in his rearview mirrors for if Colin decides to send it up the inside here, but smartly chose not to. And I know you said on the last lap Baba wasn't catching that much. Well, he has now, 0.3 of a second. He's really put his foot down.
He certainly has. And what can Van Thielen do to stop Aaron Baba here from taking the lead? He's going to have to do a lot to keep him behind as we head our way back down to turn 1 again, lap 13 or 20, 7 to go in this race. And Aaron Baba is hot on Van Thielen's heels here, looking to make a move on into the race lead to make it 2 out of 2 here at Zandvoort. Of course, got a first and second place in Spa, and he's looking to make it 2 wins in a row here in Zandvoort, as we can see further back as well, that being Hammer as well. Philip Hammer looking to close in on the back of Felix Votter, so that battle for third still heating up. Of course, Lazarus as well, looking to slowly gain back in. P6 at the moment, dropped to P10 on lap 1, or lap 2 it was, so he's done a decent job to keep himself back up into that top 6, as we do see England drop down to P14.
Yep. Oh, dearie me, that's Hinvicet, as he has, weirdly, I don't think we've seen anyone go off there at turn 7 today. That's very, very strange. I don't know if he just lost it on entry there, and the rear of the car was having absolutely none of it. You can see a replay. That was very strange. And on board, this is probably going to be the best view we're going to get. I don't think there was contact, but I can be wrong. I have been many times. Oh, I was wrong. I was very wrong. So I was wrong again. That was contact. I thought on the replay, it just looked like he, on the initial thing we saw, that's very wide from England. I thought he just lost the car on the entry, but no, there was contact. And well, speaking of contact, let's hope we don't have any for the battle for the lead. And wow, look how close everyone has caught up. I think Van Thielen has just had some very, very difficult few laps, as Aaron Baba now really putting pressure on the Belgian. And we know how aggressive he can be, and he pushes Aaron Baba off the track. That was very, very aggressive from Van Thielen, but Baba is not going to give this one up as he dives towards the inside to defend his position. And I think being a bit overly aggressive is Van Thielen, but I mean, he is fighting for a race win, so I can't really blame him, to be honest, but could have probably left Baba a bit more room into turn 1, but hey-ho, he's gonna... This is what we expected Van Thielen to do, and he is doing it, so prepare yourself, everyone, for a very, very entertaining next 6 or so laps, because this man is not going to relinquish this position anytime soon, so...
Baba's got a lot to do here. Try and get past Jentel Van Thielen, of course Peters as well. Nearly had his nose up the inside a couple of times to make a move back up into second place, but was always a little bit too further away from getting that done, as we do see there. Luke Andrews up into the top 10 there, making a move past Jonathan Lindelof, who's dropped down from, I think it was P7 earlier on, so not gone too well for Lindelof in these past couple of laps. But here we go again. Erin Baba on the back of Jentel van Tielen, with Peters closing in behind as well. Let's see what happens as we head our way back down to turn 1, and this time Erin Baba is very close to the back of Jentel van Tielen, who goes all the way to the inside here as we look to see what happens into turn 1. All 4 cars behind Jentel move to the outside line. Baba's looking for a possible switchback opportunity into turn 1 and 2, but can't quite find it. Let's see what happens as they head their way up towards turn number 3 at the banked corner. Can Baba try and send it to the inside? No. Has to stay back for now, but has got to be careful, because yet again, look at Vince Peters there, right up the rear of Erin Baba, and that's one thing he's got to be wary of. It's going to be very possible for Vince Peters to try and get the the edge off Baba here and get back up into second place, and then it makes Baba's day even harder to try and get back up into the lead.
Absolutely, and Baba, I think, has to kind of change his approach to how he's trying to pass Van Tielen, because at the moment he's just trying to brute force it, just trying to outpace him. But sometimes with some drivers you just can't do that. You've got to be a little bit more technical, a little bit more smart as well. That's Vossa just going for an absolute send on Vince Peters. That was very unexpected. I don't think he'll manage to make it work, unfortunately, but it was a good effort for Vossa. Managed to catch Peters napping there. Ooh. And an issue there for Luke Andrews, and I think Lindelof.
Yes, and that was weird, because I'm sure Luke Andrews was more than ahead of Lindelof as well. So let's see what happens here then. So does Luke Andrews have a spin and Lindelof catches him? Is that what happens? Oh no, Lindelof's going for a send. That was, yes, interesting there from Lindelof. I mean, a bit confusing, because he was leader of the class ahead of Joran England, and has now dropped himself below Joran England there. So a little bit weird for him to try and send such an audacious move. As yet again, lap 16 and 20, here we go, in towards turn 1 and 2, and Baba still can't find the move. This is going to be very difficult for Erin Baba, and I think Jentel van Tielen is showing here in race 2 that for the next 4 races that we're here, if he's in the leading position, it's going to be a nightmare for anybody to try and get through and take the lead away from him, because his defence has been, I suppose, brilliant is one word, over aggressive is another, but then again, if I was in the lead, I'd be doing the exact same thing. So, can't blame him.
Yeah, exactly right. That's the thing. We're all here to race. We're all here to win, like I was saying at the start. So I can understand it from Van Tielen's perspective fully. I mean, he's an aggressive driver. We saw that in the opening heat as a bit tail happy for Baba there, coming out of turn 9 and really pushing the car to the max. And this is what I was talking about. I don't think brute force and pace is going to get him past here, because track position is so important here. You have to be so much quicker than your opponent to get past. And Van Tielen, being aggressive and defensive as he is, Baba's got to just be a bit smart. Just, play his cards right. He is so close. And this is what I mean. He's getting so close. But then coming onto this back straight, he doesn't get an amazing slipstream run. As we see here, Van Tielen is going to go straight towards the inside. Where is Baba going to go? To the outside. And there's not going to be able... I can't even speak. Not much he's going to be able to do. This battle's just brain-rotting me. Oh, a bit of a tap there. And I can feel the frustration. I imagine all of you can as well. You can just feel the tension building up for Erin Baba. And maybe he's just preparing for an opportunity, or until we get on to the 19th or 20th lap, where he's going to full send it and we're going to see the true aggressive and pace that we know Erin Baba can do.
Certainly. I've got to say, for Jentel van Tielen, he hasn't got that raw pace that Baba has got, as that's going to be a move there as Peters goes off the circuit and Votta jumps up into third. Baba's got that raw pace and desire to push forward here, whereas Jentel van Tielen has done a very good job in terms of knowing where to place the car. That's one thing he's got here. He's got that race intelligence of keeping that car in the right spot, as we did see there. Vince Peters actually dropping down another position as he's went a little bit wide there at turn 7 and 8, drops behind the back of Hammer momentarily, and Corby Lazarus has popped up into this battle for P4. Of course, was nowhere earlier on in this race, as Vince Peters does defend that P4 spot. And Erin Babber again looking to close in, looking to find that move as we head on to lap 18. So it'll be 2 to go here. And what can Erin Babber do? He's tried so many different things here in this one. I think he's got to try where he can and somehow beat Van Tillen to that inside line, but that's going to be so difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just got to hang on to it, as Van Tillen seems to be very, very good on the brakes into turn 1, and then just seems to sit on the apex, so Erin Babber can't really get a good enough run to try and overtake him. He's being very, very smart about this, and I do respect it a lot. Defensive driving, in my opinion, is a lot harder to do than overtaking. I don't know how many people agree with that, because a lot of people, you know, it is very easy to make mistakes while defending, and that's the thing. Defending for a lap or two, not that difficult, but this is where it does get difficult. Defending for lap after lap after lap after lap, and I'm talking, you know, Alonso Hamilton 2021 Hungary style, you know, holding off a driver that's, let's be honest, much quicker than you for whatever reason, the car, themselves, whatever, but you still manage to hold them off for 10 or 15 laps. That is when defending gets really difficult, as Feiske now has had an incident. That's another driver that's gone off at turn 7. And, well, I'm not going to say whether that was contact or an error, because the last time I did, I was wrong. So he just went off at turn 7, and that's the end of it.
Yes, indeed, as we go on to lap 19 now. Lap 12, Erin Babber jumped up into second place, and since then has not been able to make that move ahead of Jentel Van Tillen. And I've got to say, these two have been mistake-free since then. That is something they should be both very proud of. And yet again, Van Tillen hugging the inside barrier. Erin Babber pulls to the outside. All those behind him also following him for that slipstream in towards turn 1. And yet again, you can see there Van Tillen just pops himself on the apex. There's nothing that Erin Babber can do, but this time he's really close, isn't he, as they head the way up the hill. Just following the rear bumper here of Jentel Van Tillen. Can Erin Babber make a send? No, has to stay behind yet again for another lap of racing here around Zandvoort. And you're starting to think here, how many laps could Van Tillen hold Babber off for? As it's just constant. There's nothing that Erin can do, as that's Besser going off and dropping down to P16.
I mean, this is just brilliant defensive driving from Van Tillen, and he's, even though he's not really had amazing pace, he's just been on it defensively and has placed his car perfectly every lap. And, you know, sometimes he has been a bit aggressive. Oh, that's a send for Erin Babber, and he spins the car round. Unfortunately for Erin Babber, your championship leader, and the man who we know for consistency and speed, has let one go. And that has opened the door for the other drivers now. Vosser now trying to get past Peters, as there's a bit of contact between those two. But Erin Babber, under the pressure, could not get that move done. And Van Tillen screaming off into the distance now, as Peters is now fighting for his life for these podium places. And I think Van Tillen's done it. I'm, of course, not going to jinx him. Still one lap left to go as we head onto the white flag. But look at the battling that's opened up for second all the way down to 6th place. This is going to get close, as someone's just blown up their engine in the pits, as Vince Peters going up the inside into 3rd place and just managing to hold off Philip Hammer for now. But Erin Babber, that was admittedly a bit of a silly move. But I mean, I don't really know what else he was meant to do. And just all by himself. I didn't even think there was contact. He just... way too aggressive, lost the car under brakes, and that's it. Down to 7th you go.
Yeah, a big shame there for Erin Babber. Of course, should still keep his championship lead, but certainly not the way he was hoping that would have gone. He would have been expected to kind of get a 100% podium streak here, because we know that's what he can do. And of course, he did that as well last season. I think nearly won every race, I think bar 2 in season 1, and well, has won 2 out of 4 here in season 2. And proving that he is he isn't unstoppable. There is drivers that can beat him, and this time it is going to be Jentel Van Tillen. Of course, has driven a brilliant job, driven a brilliant race here. Done a brilliant job. There we go. Get my words out. See, he heads his way down towards a chicane. But the final time, and this lap, he didn't have to bother defending at all from anybody behind him. He's been defending since lap 12, and finally he can have a relax as he heads his way into Larry Lyndike for the final time in this race. And then, of course, Felix Votter there, sitting in second place, looking to take home a podium. But through the final corner, Jentel Van Tielen will be the victory taker here in Zandvoort, takes a P1 ahead of Felix Votter in second, and Vince Peters rounding out the podium. I've got to say, a good race there by Corby Lazarus. Of course, started second, dropped down to 10th, and back up into P5.
Yeah, a few drivers that race had a really, really good little mini comeback. Herbigno was another one. I think he was right down the order as well and ended up finishing not too far off a podium. So really well done from some of our drivers. But Aaron Baba, I mean, I don't think he's going to come for an interview. Just straight off the bat, I think he's going to be quite frustrated. And do you know what? Fair enough. Matt Strand, by the way, wins in Pro-Am. God, what's wrong with me? From 8th and 8th today. So, you know, kind of fitting, to be honest. I genuinely expected him to maybe get a top 5, but yeah, I just don't think he had the pace in the end. And Engelen won in the AM, so very, very good job from him after Lindelof made contact with, I believe it was Colin? I think it was someone. It was one of the Pro-Ams he was fighting with. But he finished in 14th in the end, but still a good race from him. But wow, this man, Jentel Van Tielen, just honestly one of the best defensive drives I've seen in a long, long time. Yes, was a bit over aggressive at times, but that's what you have to do sometimes.
Yeah.
And wow, just hats off to him. He's gonna celebrate this one, I think, for a long, long time.
Indeed, a very, very well-deserved victory. Of course, was supposed to won in Spa, but just couldn't quite get it done. And of course, dropped down after the first race, and then had to work his way all the way from 30th, and I think finished in the top 7. So today, he's earned a well-deserved victory as he heads his way back into the pit lane. And then, of course, we'll shortly see our results for this race. Once everybody crosses the line, I think there's just 2 more cars left to cross it. Unless all is done. Oh, there, never mind. There we are. We can see our results. So Jentel Van Tielen takes the victory ahead of Felix Votter and Vince Peters in third. And then we have Philip Hammer and Corey Lazarus renegade our top 5 with Christoph Herbeno and Erin Baba. Then we have Matt Strand, who is our winner for the Pro-Am category, ahead of Michael Van Luck and Matthew Collin, second and third in that category. And then, of course, we have Joran Engelen, Jonathan Lindelof and Oliver Straight in our top 3 in our AM category. So, of course, a very interesting race here tonight, and definitely the championship is going to be heating up yet again. Of course, a few cars not making the end, and of course a few of our AM drivers, unfortunately, rather far away from our leaders, which is a big shame. Of course, you'd like to see them a little bit closer with their rivals. But so I believe, Aaron, we do have someone in the waiting room.
Yes, indeed we do. And, well, shock. I wonder who it is. Oh, it's the man who had one of the best defensive drives I've seen in a long, long time. Jentel Van Tielen. Welcome to the commentary booth. And wow, just wow. That was a brilliant last 10 laps from you, defending from some of the best drivers in the Porsche Cup car. I mean, you must be over the moon with that performance.
Yeah, I'm quite ecstatic about it. I didn't really have the pace this race because I didn't get the setup to work, but I chose to run low wing, and that helped me out a bit, so could defend on the straight.
Yeah, that's the thing. Track position here is just so important, and it helped you go a long way. And it's just what was your heart rate like? Honestly, like having Erin Baba pounding at you lap after lap after lap, that must have put some major pressure on you.
Yeah, the first laps I didn't really believe I had a chance to win, but if the laps go on and on and on, I started to believe in it. And when I saw Erin made a mistake, I knew I just had to drive it home, basically. It was just all about making no mistakes and keeping the door closed in every corner.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we were saying here is, you know, defending for a lap or two is easy, but doing it constantly, lap after lap after lap, that's when it gets difficult and you can start to get under pressure. But you did it absolutely brilliantly to a T. And, well, that's put you in a great position for a bit of momentum going into the next few rounds. So how are you feeling for the rest of the season?
I mean, most of the time my pace is quite good at Spa. It's really, really good pace, but just an unfortunate incident in the sprint race cost me a good result in the feature. But we will keep on practice and see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, well, we hope to see you fighting for victories like this every single time we come to this series. It was amazing to watch you fighting for it last time out at Spa, and was just as entertaining here at Zandvoort. So keep up the good work, and well, let's see if it pays off. And before you let you go, anyone you want to give a quick mention or shout out to?
I want to give a shout out to my whole team, Alpha Esports, for just making the setup and being a good team, I guess.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they'll be very pleased with. They'll be over the moon with the result today. I can imagine they're going to be so proud of you. But congratulations once again, Van Thielen. It was a brilliant drive from you, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thanks.
Right, there we go. It was nice to have a chat with Jens or Van Thielen. Next, we'll drag in Mats Strand. Mats, welcome in. Can you hear us?
Yes, hello.
Perfect. So, of course, welcome in. Very nice evening from yourself, of course, taking P8 overall, topping the Pro-Am category. Give us a bit of an explanation. How did that race go for yourself?
It went as good as it gets, I think. I didn't expect to have pace to follow the pros, but and Van looks to have a bit more pace than me, but I think he was involved in some incident both in the heat and the future, so I had enough gap to take the lead home, or take the win home in prime at least.
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, in qualifying, we saw especially the gaps was quite small. I think it was about 2 seconds separating like the top 20. So, do you think that helped you at any chance having that closer field spread, or do you think it was a bit more challenging knowing that everybody around you had so much pace as well?
No, it's just I wasn't that far off Baba, I think, half a second or something, so it was actually quite a confidence boost, so a bit surprised about that. Either they weren't on pace or I hit the mark, but then I started quite high up, so then you tend to stay out of trouble. There were a couple of incidents going through the few corners, but I stayed clear of those, fortunately, so.
Yeah, certainly. So a really good one indeed, of course. Next time out, we head off to Road Atlanta. Any thoughts on that circuit?
I will not jump the start again like I did in Apex. That's as long as I do that, it's good.
Certainly. Well, of course, Mats, thank you for joining us. Before you go, anyone you'd like to give a quick shout out to?
Yeah, thanks to my team and my teammates giving me support and training advice.
There we go. So, thank you, Mats. Pleasure to have you in here with us, and hopefully we'll see you again in here sometime soon.
Cheers.
Bye. Right, there we go, Aaron. Another night of the Porsche Cup done and dusted. Round 2 done, of course. Next time out, Road Atlanta. Any thoughts about that one? Because I've heard a lot of people say it's quite overrated and all that, but I love the track personally.
Well, unfortunately for you, I'm the former. I'm not a huge fan of Road Atlanta, mainly because it's mostly a skill issue. I'll be honest. It's just the first sector I've never really gotten on well with. It's an alright track. It's good for racing, I will admit that, but
Yes.
it's not my type of track. I don't think it's good, but yeah, I do think it is a tad overrated.
Of course, but well, there we go. We come to the end of another brilliant night of racing, of course, thanks to Aaron and Samuli in the production booth. And of course, guys, make sure to hit that subscribe button and, of course, like the stream. And also hit that notification bell so you can get notified when we go live here on the channel. We've got lots of action coming up over this week. And then, of course, on the 24th of March, we're back here for round 3 of the Simwear Porsche Cup. Will be heading off to Road Atlanta, so make sure to keep your eyes peeled for that one, of course. A big thank you all for watching tonight, and we'll see you then next time. Bye-bye.